there, I'm Pamela and we're in my kitchen where I share with you some of my favorite recipes or those that are most requested by friends and family. Today I'm going to be making my family's favorite Christmas cookie. And if you'll note in the title, it's award-winning. My niece made these cookies and brought them to the local county fair and won first prize. So I hope that tempts you to try the recipe. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we've got is 1 cup or 2 sticks of salted butter. We're going to add those to our bowl. There is no additional butter in this recipe, so be sure you use salted. Excuse me, salt. There's no additional salt in the recipe, so the butter needs to be salted butter. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add powdered sugar. And we're just going to blend this together until it's light and fluffy. Minute and a half, maybe 2. Start out on slow speed so you don't throw your powdered sugar everywhere, and then we will continue. Okay, that took just about a minute. Our butter and our powdered sugar are nice and fluffy. The next thing we're going to do is add our egg and our extracts. We've got vanilla and almond. And I've got them both in together in this one dish. You don't need to do that. I just did that to save a little time. Okay, we're going to blend it again till that's all nicely incorporated, maybe another minute at the most. Okay, the egg and the extracts are in there and they're nicely blended. Now we're going to add flour, some baking soda, and some cream of tartar. I just put them all together. You don't need to sift them or mix them really. I just add them in there. But so you know what baking soda is, but baking tartar, I don't know if you have that in your kitchen or not. It's not pricey. It's in the spice aisle. It's actually a byproduct of winemaking. After wine is fermented in the barrels, there's a white crystallized sediment down at the bottom, and that is potassium bitartrate or cream of tartar. So what it does though, when it works with baking soda, which is alkaline, the cream of tartar is acidic, and together they do their chemistry magic and they give a nice rise to our cookies. So we're going to add this slowly on low speed and then just get it mixed up so we have a nice stiff dough. Okay, so our dough is mixed. I've scraped down the bowl when I was mixing the sugar and the butter, and I also scraped down the bowl once, mixing in the dry ingredients. And be sure when you use the butter in this recipe that it's a nice soft butter. So we're just going to clean off the paddle, and I like to scrape this all down in the bowl, divide it into 2 pieces, and chill it in a plastic bag or a Tupperware container. It's easier to work with if your dough is not all in one big clump, because what's going to happen is we're going to chill this dough for about 3 hours or overnight. That's usually what I do. I mix it up one day, then I put it in the refrigerator and take it out the next day. But it gets very hard, the dough does. And so if you divide it in half, you're not having to try to cut it in half when it's in the bowl really stiff. So we're just going to put this in the refrigerator and let it chill, and then we'll get to rolling it out. Okay, the dough has chilled in the refrigerator for a good 3 hours. You can leave it overnight. I think I mentioned that. There's no problem doing that. I've divided it up into 2 pieces, and I'm working with a half a piece at a time. So I like to keep the other half chilled, and it's just easier than trying to cut that big hard chunk of dough into 2 pieces today. It's just easier to divide it right after we mixed it. So I've got my board, and I'm going to put a little bit of flour. You don't need much. Just want to be able to slide the dough around without it sticking. As you'll see, one side has cracks, the other side doesn't. Those will work themselves out. And it's pretty stiff, so you kind of got to get your rolling pin in there and muscle it a little bit at first. But we want it that way so that the cookies have nice sharp edges. Okay, I've got this rolled to about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to take my cookie cutters and just cut them out and place them on a cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper. Be real careful when you're pushing them out because the dough is so cold, you could break it when, I could break off one of those tips. So just cut them out and push them out of the cutters carefully. See, that one broke. That's what I'm talking about. It's very hard. So we'll start over. We'll save that for when we roll it out. We'll add it back to the mix. All right, I have got my oven preheated to 375. These are going to bake about 8 minutes. After about 5, take a look inside your oven. And if you need to rotate the pan, maybe the back of your oven's a little hotter than the front, you can do that. All you want to do is let these cookies get a little color around the edge. You don't want to brown the whole cookie. Now, I'm almost done cutting out. And I'm going to just put these scraps all together again and flatten them out, roll them out, and keep cutting. Don't knead the dough, just press it together. By now, we've worked with it and rolled it out a little bit, and it'll come together nicely. So when you finish this half batch of dough, it'll probably take 2 cookie sheets, maybe 1.5. We'll bake those up and then we'll start working with the other half. Okay, our cookies have baked for 8 or 9 minutes. As you can see, they did not take on a whole lot of color. The backs are a golden color, but the tops, just around the edges and the tips. These cookies are nice when they're a little bit on the soft side. Now, when you first take them out of the oven, they're not going to be, but once you frost them, the frosting kind of absorbs in a little bit the moisture, and the next day they're just a soft, cakey cookie, and they're really good. So this is half the recipe that we've baked up. And I wanted to tell you also, if you let the cookies sit too long on your counter after you've cut them out, they won't keep their shape as nicely in the oven. So if you feel like, wow, they've been sitting there a while, they're really soft, just put them in the refrigerator or even the freezer for 5 or 10 minutes and then bake them, and you'll get a better finished product. So now we're going to make the frosting. Frosting is super simple. I don't know why anybody goes down and buys a can of frosting, because it doesn't taste good, and this is so easy. And I'll tell you, the frosting recipe on the back of the C&H sugar, powdered sugar box, is the one I've always used, and it's delicious. So I'm just going to add a box of powdered sugar, 1 stick of salted butter. Again, it has to be salted. Very soft salted butter, as a matter of fact. We're going to add a generous teaspoon of vanilla. I say generous because that's what I like to do. The back just says a teaspoon. And then a 1/4 cup of milk. I like using whole milk. I've even used half and half before. And I add almost all of it because sometimes when you're making frosting, you'll just find, oh, I didn't need that much milk, and then you've got to add more powdered sugar. But this recipe usually comes out exactly right, but I always just start with a little less of the milk than it calls for. And we're just going to mix it, and I need the rest of the milk. It's a little on the dry, there. So just going to mix it really well for about a minute and add some food coloring, whatever color you want. We're going to use green today. Put it on high speed. Okay, I've scraped down the bowl a couple times. I've added my green food coloring. You just adjust it to the shade that you like. I kind of like this shade of green. Just take care not to add too much food coloring. You know those cookies that you see with really intense colors? They're beautiful, but the problem with them is you can taste the food coloring when you get to using a lot of it. So I like to keep it on the light side. So the next thing we're going to do is decorate the cookies. And I like to put a generous scoop on there. You can use a knife or an offset spatula, and initially when you're spreading them, don't worry too much about getting it just where you want it, because I will spread it all over and then I'll come through with the side of my knife and just cut the frosting in. And that's how you get that neat and tidy frosted cookie. There. And if you get your family to help you with this, it goes really fast. Now, I've got some sprinkles. You can use, of course, whatever you want. Oh, let me grab a bowl. To save your sprinkles so they don't run all over the floor when you're doing this, just hold them over a bowl and then you can reuse what's in the bowl. So I'm going to finish frosting these. What you're going to want to do is let them sit out on the counter for 3 or 4 hours and just let the frosting set. Then you can store them in an airtight container and put layers of wax paper between them. And they really will look fine when you serve them, but you've got to let the frosting set. Okay, so I'm going to finish frosting these up, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you are, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want to know when I upload my next video, hit the bell. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Bye.